Hey, I swear every YouTuber has done that intro at least once in their life, so, had to do it at least once. Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what is going on? It is your boys, Speakerhead, and I got a question for you. Do you like Transformers? Because, I mean, have you seen my shelves? I have a couple of them, so, you could say I might enjoy them. So you probably read the title of the video, and that's why you're here, and if not, why are you here? I mean, hi, but why? But today we're going to be talking about the difference between collecting Masterpiece Transformers versus collecting Legends Transformers. So we'll kind of explain some pros and cons about each and why I prefer to collect what I collect. So let's just get into it. But before we do get started, I want to let you guys know that I do stream every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So come check me out. Come say hey. Come hang out. We play video games and chat and have a good time with some lo-fi music playing. It's a lovely experience. Come join us. But anyways, let's just get into it. So I pulled a couple examples off my shelf to show you guys while I'm actually explaining it. So hopefully that'll help. And I'll try to throw a couple pictures on the screen to also help explain some points if I cannot show it in person. All right, so we're going to start out with Masterpiece. And the best way to explain Masterpiece? Masterpiece Transformers are usually the largest type of Transformers you can find, at least compared to mainline and Legends. So to give an example right away, right here, I have my Fans Toys, aka Robot Paradise, aka whatever you'd like to call it, Acoustic Wave. And I'll just tell you this, I know this has been kind of a heated debate in the community about which is better, the Takara one or this guy. And I'll tell you this, I don't just have him. I also have the Takara. I mean, technically it's Toy House Factory, but I have the Takara mold, and I'll tell you what, I enjoy both of them, and I don't plan on getting rid of either. In fact, I know it's impossible to see from this far away, but let's see. Yeah, dude, I nailed that hand point. I'm just saying that. This shelf has just a few sound waves on it. I want to say at least 10, probably more than that at this point, and it will definitely keep getting more because Soundwave is my favorite character of all time, and I will collect them till I die. Hopefully not soon, though. We can hope that's very, very far away. So getting back to Masterpiece Transformers, you can tell that this guy is pretty big, at least compared to your average mainline or legend scale. Like this guy, like compared to my hand, like he's pretty dang big, you know. I can. He's a pretty big guy, and besides that, he is also super heavy. He's like one of the heaviest Transformers I own, which is another positive to owning Masterpiece Transformers. Depending on what company you buy from, whether it's X-Transbots, Fans Toys, or some of the others. I mean, I'm not exactly super experienced in the area, but the ones that I do know of, in the occasional Takara, I don't think really much these days. They did a little bit in the past, I believe, but not anymore. Transform Elements, another one that just popped up in my head. But a lot of these guys are made with die-cast metal, which gives them a super heavy and premium feel. That's why all of my personal favorite Transformers are also the heaviest Transformers I own. So another thing that's awesome about Masterpiece Transformers is that they're extremely detailed, but at the same time, depending on which one you get, they're also not detailed, but that gives them detail at the same time, if you know what I mean. So to give you an example, let me pull out. This is Deformation Space Starscream. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's like Crimson Wing or something, but yeah, long story short, he looks pretty good, right? He's not exactly detailed, but at the same time, he is detailed. And what I mean by that is that he's got a lot of flats to him to make him have that cartoon aesthetic, but he has so much added detail. Like in the cockpit, there's like actual, like a little like pilot seat and everything in there. He's got so much sculpt in his face where it looks like he just popped right off the screen, but it's minimalistic at the same time. That's the best way of putting it. It's minimalistic, but detailed. So it just looks good. And if you get close, you're like, oh, there's all that little detail. But from a distance, it just, I don't know about you. This guy just looks good, and he looks awesome on camera, to be honest. I'm like looking at him. This guy looks sweet. And that is why I'm picking up the rest of them. So let's start getting into some of the negatives for Masterpiece collecting. The first main one that comes to my mind is price, because these things are expensive. Like, really expensive. Depending on what figure you go for, you could be charged up to 300 or more per figure. I will admit not every figure is that expensive. You can definitely get some that are cheaper for that depending on what brand you go with. But if you're going with something like Fans Toys, you better be expecting to pay at least $100 per figure. So that being said though, personally, I think a lot of these figures are worth the price. Like just looking at them right now, I love every single one of these, and it would be so hard to sell any of them ever, especially the sound waves. I love those so much. I don't think I'll ever get rid of those. So another negative of masterpiece collecting is that after you start collecting a bunch of figures, it starts to take up space pretty quickly. Me personally, I only put a max of 5 masterpiece figures on a shelf, and that's like pushing it. Some of the problems you'll encounter with putting more than 5 figures on a shelf is lighting issues, especially if you have to start putting figures farther back in the shelf and you don't have proper lighting. Those figures will just be put in shadows and you'll never end up seeing them and actually being able to enjoy the figures you paid for. Another problem for me personally is that if you start putting too many figures on a shelf, it just starts becoming a wave of blobs. Good example is my Soundwave shelf. As much as I love it, the main problem with it right now is that there's too many figures on the shelf, so I'm having the issue where I can't enjoy looking at all the different types of sound waves I have, and I have a lot of them and I want to enjoy them, but I can't see them all. So this next problem is more of a personal problem, but you know, I'm gonna put it in there anyways, and that is complicated transformations. I'm pretty stupid, okay? I am terrible at transforming these things, even though I love Transformers to death. Literally, I've been buying Transformers since I was a kid. Ever since I couldn't even remember, I've had Transformers in my life. So I've loved Transformers forever. But when it comes to the complicated transformations, don't even get me started. I'm terrible with it. After a certain point, I can't do it. Perfect example, bringing this guy back out again. I will never, ever, ever transform this Starscream because I've heard it is nightmares, and my main problem is if I start transforming it and I can't transform it back, that will literally be a $150 piece of plastic that will lay in a pile forever. But those are my main negatives for collecting masterpiece Transformers, and now we're going to move on to Legends class, and I'm excited about this one. So the best way to describe Legends Transformers, they're essentially the opposite of Masterpiece Transformers, at least when it comes to size. But we'll mainly be talking about New Age because that's what I know the best and that's what I collect. So suck it, all you Magic Square collectors. I'm kidding, I like you guys, maybe. They're usually the smallest type of Transformer you can find unless you go with Dr. Wu, which is a special case and fairly new in the game. I think they only started producing their microscopic figures like a year ago, not even. Yeah, like Dr. Wu figures, those things are microscopic. I'll throw a picture on the screen just to compare. Those things are tiny. But for the most part, Legends Transformers are going to be the smallest type of Transformers you can find compared to Mainline and Masterpiece. So one of the positives of buying Legends Transformers is that they're a lot more affordable than Masterpiece. A good example is where a Masterpiece figure might cost you $150, its Legends counterpart might only be about $50. So another positive is that they look really awesome for their size. I'll try to throw up a couple photos here just to show you guys, but these guys look really good, if not better than some of their Masterpiece counterparts. That's why I personally started switching more over to Legends collecting compared to Masterpiece collecting, because they just look so good and they're so much more affordable. Another thing that's really awesome about Legends figures is that their transformations are surprisingly simple but unique and pretty innovative, honestly. So a good example of this is gonna be this guy right here. Let's make sure the light's shining right on him. This is the New Age David, aka Optimus Prime. I know he's kind of blurry right here, but I'll put some photos up and just show you. This guy looks awesome. Personally, I love this guy. He just looks so good, and compared to my Masterpiece one, the only reason why my Masterpiece Prime beats him is because my Masterpiece Prime is cel shaded, and you cannot tell me that this does not look beautiful. Look at this guy. Absolutely stunning. Oops. So getting back to this guy though, this guy, he is awesome in considering how small he is and how good he looks in both modes. It's so impressive what they're able to do these days with these such small figures. And before they had an issue with their backs and stuff not being super clean, but these days they're looking pretty good. Like, you guys can see this Optimus Prime back. For the most part, it doesn't look weird or anything. Doesn't stick out too far. You know, I think it looks pretty good, regardless of what angle you're looking at. Looking at it. nailed it. But now we're going to talk about the last positive, which is going to lead into the negatives, which is their size. So they're good because they don't take up that much space, but at the same time, because they don't take up that much space, they don't really have a presence on a shelf. I'll put a photo on the screen to show you what I mean. But comparing my Legends display to my Masterpiece, the Masterpiece figures just draw your eyes so much more than the Legends, even though there are so many more there. And overall, I personally think the display looks so much better. Just as a whole, they don't draw your eye as much as these bigger, more expensive looking figures. But it is a positive for how small they are too, because like I said, you can create really cool looking displays with your Legends scale Transformers. That's why I'm collecting every single character in the Legends scale, so that way I can create an awesome display and make them all fight each other in maybe a giant diorama or something. But with a Masterpiece collection, that is literally impossible unless I dedicate an entire room or multiple rooms to it, because they're just so big. It's just so cool that you're able to do that with these little figures compared to these giant figures, which you can display a few of them, like I said, but once you start getting more than 5 on a shelf, it just gets messy. Legends figures, I feel if you spread them out enough and use some, let's say, risers or even some flight stands or something, you can really have a scene going. Like I'll show my Legends display for my Decepticons. I think that looks pretty good for what it is. It's not the greatest, but I don't think it's terrible. So another negative for Legends Transformers is that they're pretty flimsy to mess with. Sometimes it's hard to get them in the pose you want because they're just so small and so delicate, and just the littlest thing make them move or fall over. So you got to be careful with that with Legends. Just take your time with them, and if you really have big sausage fingers and just have a really hard time messing with little small things, then maybe Legend scale isn't for you. So I know I've been rambling forever, but this comes down to the final question: which type of collection should you collect? So this is my opinion. If you have the money and the space for it, definitely try to at least get some Masterpiece figures. A good way of doing it is buying your personal favorite figures. Good example, that's what I'm doing. I am buying only my favorite figures in Masterpiece, maybe the occasional one that I'm like, but that's just to mainly fill up space, or it's a character that I need. Good example, I'm going to be getting MP36 just to fill that Megatron spot, even though, I mean, I love Megatron, but, you know, I don't care about that figure that much, to be honest with you. I used to have the Mega Action Series 1. I'll throw that puppy on screen. That thing was 18 inches tall, Titan class scale. That thing was beautiful. So I've had my Megatron worth. Besides, I have the New Age one, and that guy is also beautiful, so I'm not super worried about it, as long as I have one good Megatron, you know? So my main problem right now is that I'm running out of space, and that's why I'm slowing down on my Masterpiece collecting. Unless I get another shelf or something, I just logistically don't have the room for them. Unless, like I said, I get a couple more shelves or something. But that's why I'm going to Legend scale collecting, because a lot of these figures, like I said, they just look so good, or even better than the Masterpiece equivalent. And they're so much more affordable, where you can buy 2 or 3 Legend scale for the price of one Masterpiece. On top of that, for how new Legend scale is and how many figures have been produced so far, we can easily see an entire cast within the next few years probably. I mean, with New Age, we already have the whole season 1 cast of the Decepticons, and we've already got a pretty good chunk of the Autobots. Right now, we're just missing a lot of our Combiners and Titan class in some of our later seasons, but those will eventually get made. Here's the best way I can explain it. As a Transformers collector, I like to mess with my Transformers. If you don't, I mean, you do you, but what are you doing? I will say I do not transform my Masterpiece Transformers. I don't transform my Masterpiece Transformers for 2 reasons. 1, complexity. 2, price. If it is an expensive Transformer, I am so worried I am going to scratch it. And if I scratch it with OCD, it will literally haunt me for like a week minimum. So that's why I don't do that. Good example. There's a little nick on my Deformation Space Starscream's chest. Bugged me for like a month. That being said, if you're going to be transforming your figure and messing with it, it will get wear and tear, whether you like it or not. That's just how it works. But for the most part, I haven't had any issues with paint or anything with my Legends class, except for my Soundwave, but I bought him first. He was my introduction to Legends class, and then I bought all my other ones. And on top of that, I messed up his transformation and really messed him up, and I'm going to buy a new one to replace him. So But bring the point back, which one should you collect? Well, honestly, it's whichever you prefer. Do you enjoy the little figures with the simpler transformations that look good in mass? Or do you enjoy the premium figures? Do you enjoy those details? Do you enjoy just the presence on a shelf? Do you enjoy that hefty feel? It's all your choice. But guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe because it really does help me out and shows me you guys enjoyed this video. But other than that, that's going to be it for me, and I will catch all y'all in the next one. Peace.